Awesome. So yeah, guys, yeah, thank you for coming along today, and I hope what we've done so far with reviewing other people's CVs have been helpful. Um, but as you know, today is about a CV session, CV workshop. So it's gonna be very interactive, and so please jump in and share. So what is a CV and why does a CV matter? A CV is your personal marketing document. It is a written evidence of your personal brand. So, like Maclean said, when recruiters take CVs, sometimes they spend less than a minute on each CV, which means that you want to make it interesting for the person to want to read it. You want to make it appealing. You want to make it visually appealing, but also content-wise, you want to engage them all the way through. Um, your first impressions matter. So if someone is going to spend just 30 to 60 seconds on that CV, it needs to be really good and captivating. What is the purpose of your CV? It is to show your value quickly and clearly. So I'm just going now, structure of a CV. What does a CV look like? What's a typical structure of a CV? This is just the list of things, sections that you would have in the CV. And I think as we were going through other people's CVs, you saw some of these headings. So this is what your heading would look like. You would have a header, which is like the first heading, and then you have something on your professional summary or a career objective. And I'm going to talk about what the differences are. You have something on your education, experience, skills and competences. You could have something on your professional development or training. So if you attended some training somewhere, you can have a section that helps you highlight that. You can have a section on community engagement efforts. So if you are volunteering in the community to help with some things, maybe you want to talk about some health issues that people can learn from. Anything that you've done to contribute to community, you can do that. You can put that here. You can have a section on awards and prizes. I'm sure a lot of you have won awards and prizes. But when we went through the series, we didn't really see that a section on that. So you can have a section on that. You can have a section on registrations and accreditations. So for example, do you have a Ghana card? Do you have a driver's license? Do you have any registrations? You can have a section on presentations as well. So as I said to Emmanuel, presentations can be a section on its own. And you can have, and this is highly recommended for academic CVs, but also if you're going for a high level role, like a manager role, it's helpful to have a presentation session because people want a manager that can present, right? And you can have something on publications as well, especially for academic CVs or if you're aspiring for a PhD. And I think we saw that in Jedediah's CV, for example. Um, so which of these are not in your CV currently? Do you want to just pop that in the chat, your answer in the chat? It could just be one because of time. Oh, Joseph couldn't see the poll. I'm so sorry, Joseph. How to do this. Okay. 50 is trying to be modest. JJD, you. Um, presentations and publications. Okay, good. Community engagement and impact. Okay. Yeah. Is there any other responses coming through? Mr. Comey, is there any part that I forgot to add in this list from your field, for example? Registrations and accreditations. Okay, good. Okay, guys.
Yeah, I think it's just about the project. So if you're coming from a technical background, it would be great to have a project session where you
Mm,
talk about some of the stuff that you've worked on. Yeah.
yeah, that's good. And then you can add your GitHub link there under that section.
Yep.
So it doesn't mean you just add GitHub and you don't comment on the project. It's good to have one or two sentences about each one that gives the person insight into what the project was about. But thank you. That's a good consideration. So moving on from that, we're going to now go through each of these sections and look at what it should look like. So we'll start with the header. So the header should have your name, your address, your phone number, your email, your LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn is highly recommended now. And you saw that in all the examples that we saw. So these are two examples, for example. Examples, for example. I've just blared out people's names so that we don't like yeah, implicate other people. But I think you've seen that in what your colleagues had in their CVs as well. So this person, for example, added their OC ID, which shows that that person is a researcher. OC ID is a common ID that researchers have that helps to show what papers you've published and your research work over time. LinkedIn and all that. This person has added as well all their numbers and address as well. So, and then this is mine, very simple, just name, address, LinkedIn, done. Now we'll move on. Is there any question about the header before we move on or comment? Okay. We'll move on to the second part, professional summary or career objective. I'll start with the so this is an example of a professional summary, and this is an example of a career objective. Can anyone just jump out? Yes, please. Dear, your hand is up.
Sorry, so I was wondering for the header,
Mhm.
how much information should you put there? And then when do you know that it's too much information? Say, LinkedIn, that when you are doing it for a technical application, say maybe in the tech field, you would want to put your GitHub accounts linked to over there. Was it necessary to put it at the header, or you can just share a link in the projects section?
Um, I think you can put it in the header. So sometimes instead of having the whole link there, you can shorten it by just using hyperlinks. So if you see mine, I just wrote the word LinkedIn, right? And I have hyperlinked it, so that shortens it. So if I had a GitHub, I could just add another whatever separator and just write GitHub and hyperlink it. Does that answer your question?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
The same for Orchid. The person could have just written Orchid and hyperlinked it instead of having the whole link there. So thanks for asking that question. I think it's a good question so that people will know how to keep it tidy. Professional summary. So this is professional summary in this. Do you note any difference between the two? What's the difference between the two? Can someone jump in and tell me what they can see as a difference between the two? So is anyone keen to do that? Um, and which of these types do you have in your CV? You can just pop that in the chat. Do you have a professional summary or a career objective? Okay. So because of time, Mabel has a professional summary, Emmanuel has a professional summary. Oh, awesome. Good to know. We're just gonna move into talking about what the differences are and so that you would be well informed about which one you should have in your CV. So what is a professional summary? It's often 2 to 4 lines, so you don't do more than 4 lines. And even between those 2 to 4 lines, you want to have fairly short sentences so that it's not overwhelming for the reader. And and it should talk about who you are and what you have to offer. It highlights what you have to offer. That's the key thing that, look, I would say something about myself like a highly skilled neuropsychology researcher with over 6 years experience in this and that and that. So it's about who am I? What do I have to offer? these are my skills. These are the skill sets that sets me apart. Um, it's a short snapshot of your skill, your experiences, and value that you bring. I've talked about how long it is already. It highlights your achievements and your strengths, and best used when you want to show impact and quickly and also demonstrate your value. And it's typically used when you've got some experiences on your CV already, so that you are using this summary to highlight your impact based on those experiences. In contrast, when you're doing a career objective, it's often for people who are just starting in their career, maybe a uni student who hasn't got experience yet. So we'll talk about that in a bit. You want to start with who you are plus your strength. So you mention your role or your background and then a key strength. So a good example is a detailed-oriented graduate with strong analytical skills. Detailed oriented. So this, if you were writing it the other way, it could have been sounded something like, I am a detailed oriented. You see how they've taken out the I? It just goes straight to detail oriented graduate with strong analytical skills. So that's how you structure your sentences. You also focus on value, not your duties. So you highlight what you bring, not just what you've done. Skills, impact, and strengths. What do you bring? You start with the role descriptor, not with I or my. So, for example, I am a motivated student. No, instead you can write motivated and detail-oriented student or experience in data analysis and reporting. Yeah. This is an example of a professional summary, like I showed you before. So this person has got I there, which we don't want to have. On this one, though, it says highly motivated and result-oriented scientist with about 2 years of experience in computational chemistry, data analysis, visualization, programming, this. Then it goes, instead of saying I am seeking, the person says seeking a research and development position. So you have to say what you're looking for in this field, and this is how I want to contribute. Because people want to know what you're going to help them to achieve. Um, is there any question on this before we move on? Okay. So, so that's about it for the professional summary. Now, what is a career objective? And note that you have that in the same section. It's either a career objective or a professional summary. So when do you use this one? This one is typically just 1 to 2 lines because, like I mentioned, it's for people who are just emerging, maybe a student who hasn't got any experience yet, maybe just one internship experience. And you want to state what you want. So it focuses on what you want. What are your aspirations? It's about your career goals. It's less about your achievements and more about what your direction is. So a good example is motivated and detail-oriented students seeking an entry-level role in project management where I can apply my organizational and problem-solving skills to contribute to team success and grow professionally. So you see how different it is. In the professional summary, you are saying, I am awesome, and this is what I can bring, and this is why you should hire me, or this is why you want me on your team. And in this one, you're saying, I'm just starting, and this is what I'm hoping to become. Is there any question at this point? Question or comment? Mr. Comment, do you have any comment to add? You guys can also pop questions in the chat if anything comes up for you. I'm keeping an eye.
Not at the moment. Yeah.
Awesome. So moving on from there, we've got another poll here. Um, so I'm just going to, based on what you've learned about uh, the difference between a professional summary and a career objective, which of these two do you think you need in your CV based on what you've learned. So let me just pop that poll up. What do you oh, okay. So this is the second poll. Yeah. Can you? Oh. Has it popped up?
No, please.
Okay.
Not on my end.
Let me try again. Mm. Doesn't have to. I don't know why I can't launch it. Okay. Sorry, guys. You can pop your answers to the chat in the chat. Based on what you've learned, which of the two do you think you definitely need in your CV? Based on your career level and what you can speak to in your CV. Do you need a professional summary or a career objective? Matilda says she needs a career objective. Awesome. Thank you for responding, Matilda. Mm. Okay. So I'm gonna move on because of time. The next section is on education. Yeah, career objective. Okay. Okay. Cool. So the next section is on education. Education. So this is where you speak to your SHS degree if you don't have a lot of educational yes, please, your hand is up. Jadidia, please jump in.
Sorry, before we move forward, I just got confused. So I was wondering, say you are trying to apply for a role in a new space, somewhere you've never worked before. So although you have work experience, it's not towards that area. Would you need career objective or you need the professional summary?
That's a very good question. And that's another thing with the career objective. It is for it it can also be used when you're transitioning into a new space, right? So you can use that. But I thought of that and I thought, if I'm transitioning into a new space, I still want to talk about my experience, you know? I want to still highlight who I am professionally because sometimes you may go into a new space, but they hired you because of what you are bringing, not because they want to find out what you can do. Does that make sense? So I think if you're a professional who has got rich experience, even if you are transitioning into a new space, it's good to think about how you can tailor your professional summary to speak to some of the things they may be looking for in that new role. Because even if the technical parts in terms of maybe hard skills, like we need someone who can code in this language, if you don't have it, you still have a lot of things you can bring. So I think once you have experience, it's better to not undersell yourself by writing a career objective that doesn't show what you can do at all. Does that make sense, Jared? Yeah? So that would be my approach to that.
So
Okay.
basically, you can state the skills that can be transferred to this new
Yeah,
role.
definitely. So sell yourself. Okay, thank you. So
Thank you.
education, you want to, yeah, you've seen examples of how people list that. You want to start from your most recent to your your older ones. So most recent should be at the top. You include the month and year, the location, so that looks like city and country, and include your thesis title and main impact or your main finding of the thesis. But also, like Maclean said, speak to some of the technical details of the thesis, like, oh, I used mixed method analysis, collected data in 300 people, analyzed with SPSS, and showed that this and that and that. So think through your process and think of how you can write one sentence that captures it in a powerful way, maximum two sentences. Um, so these are examples of what this section can look like. You can just unmute yourself and just tell me what key features you see. But while you're thinking of what you want to say, I can start talking. So for example, you can see here that this is clearly nicely laid out, like you saw in some of your colleagues' CVs. You see that it's quite nicely laid out. The person has indicated which month and year to present. They've also mentioned their location. So this was Detroit, USA. This was in Kumasi, Accra. They also showed this is a PhD and this was the area where it was studied in. This other person has also done similar. They could have added the month year, but they didn't, but they just mentioned year. But they talk about their GPA, talk about selling yourself, right? And they've also mentioned their thesis title. And I would even go a step further and talk about the main finding of the thesis as well to help demonstrate your impact and skill a bit more. And they did the same for this. So that's what this section can look like. Um, Moving on to experiences. So over here, you want to talk about your work, any internship, any voluntary experiences you've had. You want to also list them from most recent to older ones and you want to highlight what the job was. What was your role? What was your portfolio? What were your responsibilities and your main impact and achievement? So we've highlighted that a lot in the comment today. So I hope that has sunk home. You want to include the location, month, and year as well. And you want to distinguish between work experience and voluntary experience. So when you write work experience, and you mix it up with things you've not been paid for. Sometimes people just assume you did all this work. And sometimes if you're someone who volunteers a lot, it can make you look like someone who is not focused, right? So be very careful of that because they go like, oh my God, they're doing all these 10 things at the same time. They're doing all these things. Will they have time for this job? Meanwhile, some of those things are voluntary. If you put them in voluntary section, it would help the reader to know that, oh, this is voluntary. They're probably doing it once a month. So, okay, it doesn't matter. But if you list it as experience, it can it can be risky for you because it might look like someone like Andrew, he does a lot of volunteering. Also, I know Joyce does a lot of volunteering. Daniel does a lot of volunteering. So if you mix up these things, it can look like you won't have time to do the job you'll be paid for. So just try to distinguish that. Again, over here, this is an example of what this can look like. So this person talks about how that they were a research assistant in this department from this time to this time. Again, get into the habit of adding the month and the year so that you don't have to think about it. You don't have to suffer to remember it later. They mentioned the location where this happened, and then they said what? Assist, but they should have written assisted faculty members in the lab on this and that. Undergraduate research projects, blah blah blah. This other person talks about um their research experience. So demonstrated general chemistry lab, held weekly office hours and graded quizzes and exams. Um, Teaching assistant for this course. So look, you can be more punchy, you can demonstrate your impact a lot more. But this is some of the layout, how people do that. And you see how this person has indicated 40 hours a week or 10 hours a week. If the thing is part-time, you want to highlight it so that it doesn't look like you already have a job. Is there any question on this? Because I know this is quite important. Okay. Then how do you articulate your experience? One is that you want to think of it. So there's a formula. So you think of what action verb can you use? Demonstrated, collected, um, initiated, all those sort of action works, developed, improved, coordinated, completed. You want to think of the action verb. Then you want to think of the task. Coordinated weekly data collection efforts. That's the task you were doing. Um, for 300 participants leading to successful completion of the project. So you want to talk through to the end, to the result. What did that lead to? You want to also focus on what you did and the outcome. So impact, impact, impact. So what is the number? What percentage? How much time was saved because of what you did? So for example, led a team of 5. So if you say you led something, if you say you taught students, talk about 200 students. It doesn't even have to be the exact number. As long as you say about 500, approximately 300, but give us an idea of how much work you did. So this person said led a team of 5 to deliver a project 2 weeks early. So it's like, look at me, I'm so awesome. I did this 2 weeks early to the deadline. Improved customer satisfaction rating by 25%. Did this person gauge it? Probably not, but think of it. Think of how you can sell yourself. What changed because you contributed? That's what you should think about. What changed so in all the lines, single lines that you talked about, things that you did in your roles, think of what changed because I was there? What changed because of my contribution? Um, Still on how you can articulate your experience, there are some statements here about how to demonstrate the impact language, right? So you want to talk impact, not just your duty. You don't want to just say, I collected data. You don't want to just say, I analyzed the data. I served customers. You want to talk about impact, not just the duty that you did. So, this is an example. Responsible for managing social media accounts. Can someone tell me how they will improve this? I will mention names because I know you guys are going quiet on me. Daniel, please, how would you improve this one? In case Daniel is busy, I'll call the next person I'm going to call is Gracie. So get ready, Gracie. Okay, Gracie, you can jump in for this one while Daniel is getting ready. Or Matilda. Matilda.
You can
Thank you.
say manage social media accounts.
Yeah, I
Probably I
agree.
didn't get the question.
Can you try to add an impact to it? Manage social media accounts. Something like leading to significant improvement in number of followers, right? Or leading to an increase from 200 to 500 followers. Do you see that, Matilda?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Or leading to a higher number of engagements over the past 3 months.
Yes, exactly. I love that. Over the past 3 months, you're even specifying the time as well. How much, like, within what time did you make that impact? Because that's important. So this is what it can look like. Grew social media engagement by 30% in 3 months through targeted content strategies. Do you see how it has improved? Okay. Another one is assisted customers with inquiries. Daniel, I'm back to you. How would you improve this one? And again, Gracie. And the next person in line will be Mabel. So any of you can jump in to do this one. Assisted customers with inquiries. Gosh. Okay. Get ready, guys. I'm coming back for you. So this one can look like resolved customer inquiries efficiently, contributing to about 20% or 25% increase in customer satisfaction ratings within 1 year. Worked on group projects. So this can look like collaborated with a team of 4 to deliver a project 2 weeks ahead of the deadline, achieving a high distinction grade. So does anyone have any question on how these things play out before we move on? And we're going to go a little over our time.
Yeah, please, I have a question.
Yes, thank you.
I think with the numbers or the
Mm-hmm.
percentages that
Mm-hmm.
are written in there,
Mm-hmm.
won't you get some recruiter asking you
How
how
did
you
you
got
measure
those
that?
numbers? Yes.
That's a very good question. And that's why in some of the alterations, I say leading to a significant improvement, right?
Yeah.
So if you say that, you are not locking yourself. If you
Yeah.
have numbers or a way to prove numbers, then you do it. But if you don't, like Matilda said, don't throw it in and lock yourself in a question you can't answer. If you say it led to significant improvement, you give yourself a chance to explain. They may ask you, what do you mean? And you can say, oh, we saw that our followers increased from 200 to 500. Or we saw that people were buying things more, you know? So if you keep it fairly vague, you can explain it. Because I know that sometimes in a lot of the places we work, we don't measure these things. Yeah. Thank you for that question, Matilda.
I'm putting a quick comment.
Yeah.
So, in our last year, in the previous year of test cycles, we had a
Mm-hmm.
time management session where we talked about time management, where we talked about organizing your week and everything. So, one of the things that you do is when you organize your week, when you're working or doing an internship or anything, at the end of the week, you also evaluate. It's one of the things that is very important to evaluate yourself and see whether you're making progress or not. At the end of the day, if you bring this work ethic or this way of managing your time into a role, you're able to pick up that, okay, this week I was able to serve 5 customers more than last week. At the end of the month, you're able to add it up so that whenever you have a situation like this where you've given the metrics 40%, 25%, and so on and so forth, you can actually have figures or comments to back it up. Yeah.
Yeah, that is very intentional, and I love that. I really love that. But that is also to say that you need to be intentional about your CV. So as you are for example, I don't have a schedule on how often I update my CV, but anytime I do something significant, like I was asked to present, I'll just jump in my CV and put it there. Sometimes I don't even put it there in a polished way, but I just add it to the list so that when I get time to polish it, it's there. And if you get into the habit of doing that, like Maclean is saying, you become more alert and more intentional about how you log your experiences. So be very intentional because you're doing a lot of things. Every day you wake up, you make a lot of calls. You are making impact. But if you're not thinking about it in terms of what impact am I making, you will not think of it as something you can put on your CV. So get into that habit of sitting and thinking, what have I been doing the last week? Can any of that go on my CV? Okay, how can I sell it on my CV? So if you are tracking, you'll be able and sometimes you are doing some work, maybe in your job, your role, it doesn't have matrices for you to track. But like Maclean said, if you set up a system for yourself and you're like, I am going to sell this thing on my CV because it's taking me so much work and it's taking so much of my work and time, you'll be able to come up with a strategy to measure it. Okay. That was a great question. Thank you, Matilda. So next one is skills and competencies. What does that look like? You could talk about your soft skills and your technical skills. So your technical skills look like what softwares you've been using, what can you analyze data in, what kind of software, Microsoft, all these things that you can use. Then there are soft skills like your leadership skills, your communication, your presentation skills. So, um, for example, this person say talks about laboratory. These are some of their hard skills. So they did this study, personal strengths. So this person has broken it up into things they can do in the lab, personal strengths, so excellent communication, which I would call soft skills, really, interpersonal relationships, leadership, and team player. And then they've got software, which I would then call technical skill. That would be things like the fact that they can use Python and all of this stuff. So again, you use a lot of things. You do, maybe you use Canva. Think of all those things and think of what you can put on your CV. Because sometimes we take things for granted. Sometimes I've done this exercise and I go, oh, the last time I was using Napkin AI, I should put that there. Or I was using this other AI tool. Let me add that there. I did this AI training certification. Let me add that there. Think of your CV. Otherwise, you forget that you did some things. Maybe you can set up for yourself once a month when you are planning your month or whatever, think of what you've done, what can go onto your CV. It doesn't have to look perfect in the moment, but pop it on there so that you don't forget it. Because the thing I do is I'm afraid I'll forget. So I just pop it in there so I don't forget it. Because there's so much happening. This other person says programming. They're doing Python, they do bash scripting, they do MATLAB. They also do some machine learning stuff. They also do, and Edith, as you're looking at this list, I'm sure you can see a lot of skills um, not just Edith, but also even Richmond. I know you also do some coding stuff. You can see how you can actually articulate a lot of the things that maybe you just used that program to do something quick and moved on. You didn't think you should put it on your CV, but you can articulate it. Is there any question here before I jump into the next section? Or comments? Mr. Comment, is there anything you want to add?
Not at the moment.
Cool. Moving on. Next one is around professional development and training. So this is about trainings that you've done. Maybe you took a certification course on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has got LinkedIn Learning, where you can do simple courses like communication, interpersonal skills, like some hardcore things like programming as well. You went on what's the name of the program? Kajabi or any of those learning platforms and you learn some things. This is where you can put those things. Maybe in your work team, they organize some training for you. This is where you can put it. So for example, I've got on my CV 3-day team leader training, and that happened in what in July 2025. In April, there was what intentional peer support training. So think of all those, and maybe you did some training in church. Maybe there was a training program in church. Do you have a certificate for it? Put those things on your CV, okay? Um, Next thing here is about community engagement. So what kind of community engagement efforts are you doing? Are you part of some associations that you belong to? What do you do in the associations? How do you contribute? Do you lead in a group? Are you chairing or moderating some meetings? Are you an MC in some events? These are things you can put on your CV as well. Um, were you volunteering? I know Mabel does community talks on health issues and things. Maybe like don't all those engagements, anytime you do something, you can put it on your CV. And when you do it, you want to list the year, the month, the event, the program, what you did. So this is an example of that as well. Community engagement effort. So for example, this person chaired a meeting um last year, also did a seminar, was chairing a seminar. So you see here, I mentioned what the title of the seminar is, and talked about members had the privilege of learning from the insights of blah, blah, just, and I could have even qualified it by saying 200 members or 50 members, because when you attend a meeting, you know how many people were there, or you have a rough idea, right? This one, this person lists them as volunteer experience. So I'm a member of the Nobel Star Charity Organization from this time till date. And this is what they do. They handle membership programs. So, and I know, especially in church, we do a lot of things in church, in the community. Even maybe you even help young kids do their homework in your area. That's something, that's community engagement. That's community contribution. So, is there any question on here before I move on? So I've got a question here for you guys. Can you think of any engagement missing on your CV at the moment? And I will call, who can I call to comment on this? Gideon, is there any engagement that is missing on your CV? Or Joseph, either of you can jump in to answer. Or Mabel.
Okay, I would like to ask a question.
Yes, please.
Okay, so in my community, I noticed most of the drainage systems in our community were choked, as in stagnant water and
Yeah.
just plastic material. So I wrote a project proposal to our district community office. Then,
Hey.
but as when I wrote it to them, I didn't receive any reply. So
Yes.
and they haven't worked on it. Can I still include it into my CV?
Yes, you can. Because that is what you did. It's not something that's common, right? And it takes a very responsible and proactive person to do that. You can say, um, contributed to community growth by proactively reaching out to the community municipality about a stagnant drain in the community and still following up. So follow up on it and still following up to ensure this gets fixed. So that's it. You can even think of next steps, or can you mobilize? Is there anything else you can do? But that's something you can put on your CV as well, because people in where we live, for example, there is a path that we walk past, and it often has a lot of garbage because there are people building, there are new buildings coming up, and the builders often have a lot of things that fly off. They are not supposed to let the things fly off from their site because there are very strict rules about what they are allowed to do. But some of them do. Maybe sometimes their cans are open and things are flying off. And we walked past it, and my husband was like, "Oh, like these builders are littering the place." And I literally said to him, "Don't worry, our neighbor is going to write to the municipality." So, Gideon, I'm not as responsible as you. So I admire that, right? Um, and yeah, true to my word, our neighbor wrote to the municipality and said, this problem is there. So it takes a certain kind of people who are very responsible and proactive to do that. And I think you should highlight it on your CV. Okay. Mabel, were you going to say something?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Doc, regards to the community engagement, personally for me, I normally do a lot of this health talks,
Yeah.
invite health professionals and all that. And from what from the past experience, I've been giving health talks in schools, churches, and all that. So, do I specifically have to maybe name the particular place I gave the health talk, or like, yes, the institution I gave it? Because from the time I started, it's a lot, and I'm not sure they can all fit in
Yes.
the CV.
That is
Yeah.
wow, what a superstar. Well done. So you can think of the ones that you want. Sometimes also with your CV, you can be discreet, right? So you can, if you have a lot of experiences for a particular session, you think of which ones you really want to highlight. And you highlight those ones. You can also think of how can you summarize this as a higher level. So you can go 2024 or 2025 did, and then you write a summary statement. Did 20 health talks across the community. So sell it. At least track how many you did. 2025 did 25 health talks across Ghana in the Ashanti, Volta, and this region. For example, did a talk, so did 20 talks in these regions that impacted or that helped educate 500 people. So you think of how many people attended all your talks and put it in the number. Then you give one example. For example, talk on this in this organization, done. Does that help?
That's help.
Yeah, so don't throw away the experiences. Think of how you can take it to a higher level and present it in a way that makes impact, that demonstrates the impact you're making, because it's a lot of effort. Awards and prizes. So you want to list any awards or recognitions that you got. Did you get a recognition in church for diligence or in your school or community? You want to, and if you don't have any awards, but also if you don't have any community engagement things on your CV, you want to think of how can I do something? Can I volunteer somewhere? Can I apply for this prize? Can I apply for this competition? Think of how you can grow so you have such experiences on your CV. So this is how you can list it. So awards, for example, Education USA, this person said they got an outstanding academic performance award. They got this award from a foundation in 2021, outstanding academic performance. Look, this person is a superstar. And then this other person is so this happened second runner up in this oral presentation, for example, got an award to travel for a conference. Those are all things you can list on your CV. So again, can you think of any award or prizes that is missing in your CV at the moment? You should add it. Next one, registration and accreditations. So I've talked about this already. Do you have a license that you have to add?
Yeah, please, I have a question.
Yes, Matilda.
All right. So how about maybe you went for like a competition and you lost? Where do you put that? Do you even have to put it on there in the first place?
That's a story of my life because in research you lose a lot, you lose more than you win. So you submit a paper to journals and maybe three, four journals rejected before you get accepted. And you apply for funding and you get maybe 5% of all the application efforts. Sometimes on my CV, for example, because I'm still an emerging career, whatever, researcher, I put my research effort. I say I apply for this grant, unsuccessful. If the award was highly competitive, put it there and just admit that it was unsuccessful because you put in the effort. I believe in that. That effort counts a lot. So put that in. And maybe it would lead to an interesting discussion in your interview. They're like, "Oh, what did you learn from that experience? How could you have made your application better?" But if you genuinely believe you put in a lot of effort and it didn't come up, put it in because that I believe in effort. So that would be my answer. Mr. Comey, do you have any comment on that? My environment is noisy at the moment. Joseph, thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, I think like you said, the belief in effort, put it there, and it would definitely pique the interest of some recruiters or some people who are hiring that, hey, you are someone who puts in the effort or you are tenacious. Like you're always having a go. You don't give up easily. That
Mm-hmm.
also tells in that story that I applied for this, I didn't get it. I applied for this, I didn't get it. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And registrations and accreditations. So we've talked about this. Yeah, you want to highlight that because sometimes in some jobs they need someone who can drive or they need someone who, if there's an emergency with the client, they can take a car and drive, right? So in Australia, for example, they always want to see if you can drive or you have this thing where they call working with children check, which means that you've gone through a test that ensures that you're someone who is safe to work with children. So think of what you can put on there. Is it a Ghana card that your job needs? Is there any requirements from jobs that you need to put in there? The next one is on presentations, which is an easy one. So this is highly recommended for academic CVs, but also for when you're applying for leadership level roles. So for example, what presentations have you done? So this is how you can list it. You can talk about this is the conference, you did an oral present. You see how I have highlighted in bold oral presentation. So when the person sees it, like, oh, okay, and this was the title of the presentation. This was the conference oral presentation. This was the title of the presentation. So this one is not as neatly written as the way that I did mine. So you want to maybe learn from this and just write it like that so that it stands out for the reader. They just go, oh, they've done a lot of oral presentations. Okay, they are pretty good at presenting, probably. Then publications. So this is what I was talking about, Emmanuel. You want to highlight your publications. This is highly recommended for academic CVs. And I think I think Jedediah asked a question, and I wanted to say that when you apply for PhDs, they want to see your publication. So you definitely want to have it on there, even if it's under review or it is being prepared. So this is how you can list your publications. You list all the authors first, and then the title of the paper, then followed by the name of the journal in italics, and the year and the whatever, the volume and the issue of the article, and then you can add a link. Or same thing, names of everyone on there, and there's a convention. So it's often surname, and then the rest of the names are hyphenated, or are shortened or whatever. So it's the surnames that you can see. You come here, and what you also can do is your name, you bold your name so that if your name is, let's say, 10th in the list, the reviewer or the person reviewing your CV can easily see it that, oh, you were a co-author or you were leading this paper. So you bold it. And then if it's in preparation to your question, Jedediah, you just write in preparation. And then you just write it there. Just write the title of the paper. But at least you have all the people listed there. And then if it's published, then you have the year or it's in review or whatever. I hope that helps. Cool. So this is the structure of
Yes.
all the things that can go into your CV. We've talked through all of them. And so I hope that you feel, we've already done this at the start. So I hope that you feel more confident to do your CVs now. There are a few things about formats that I want to talk about. So you want your CV to be 1, 2 pages max, sometimes 3, 4, depending on as you grow, your CV will become bigger. At the moment, my CV is sitting somewhere around 10 pages. But when I'm going to apply for roles, I cut things that are relevant and use and present that in, let's say, 3, 4, 5 maximum. But at your career level, you want to have maximum of 3 thereabout. But 1, 2 is enough. Use a clear heading, and you saw like with the examples that we had, have consistent, appealing format so that when someone sees your CV, like, oh wow, this is really nice to read. You want to use the same font color, the same font size, because some people have got a great eye to detail. And if they are the people reviewing your CV, you don't want them to get you on inconsistencies because they will just throw it away. Um, Use simple font, use bullet points, not paragraphs. So you want to write things in very short sentences with bullet points. You want to avoid clutter, so you want to make it look easy to read, appealing to read. You want to avoid too much colors, and you want to also avoid unnecessary graphics as well. You want to save your CV in PDF when you submit it to the recruiter. And you want to tailor it for each opportunity. So when you're applying for a job, think of what the job requirements are and think of how you can tailor your CV for that job. What roles do you want to highlight more? So, for example, I have got experience in industry, I've got experience in research, I've got some teaching experience. depending on what role I'm applying for, I want to highlight maybe my industry experience more or my research experience more. So you have to think about things like that. Especially if you've got a long CV, you want to highlight what is relevant. And you also want to tailor. Sometimes some countries have got different requirements for CV. So, for example, in Ghana, people may include their photo in the CV. Some countries actually want that. So, you want to do a quick Google search and go CV formats or requirements for Canada, just so you know, because every country have got their CV formats and they've got some things they don't want on the CV, like they don't in the UK, Canada, Australia, they don't want to see your photo on the CV, for example. So you don't want to have it there. You don't want to have personal information like um your birth date on the CV for Canada or UK because they don't want to see that on there. So just be aware of that. And in some of these countries, you don't add the references list, you just write available upon request as well. But it's good to have the name reference there at the end and write that so that they know you've thought about it. So I don't think this poll will work, but I will try it regardless. I don't know why it's not possible to launch. I will stop sharing. Maybe it's the sharing feature that's causing that. And maybe try. Okay. Still can't launch. So it means that it's already launched in some way. Okay, it is not working. But essentially, I just wanted to ask you guys, how confident do you now feel about having a winning CV after everything that we have talked about? You can just pop your comments in the chat. And is there any pending question, burning question that people want to ask? Okay. So, okay. So I will just move on from there. Just two questions, and I'm going to call a few people to jump in and comment on this. So Emmanuel, for example, oh wow, 9, very confident. That's good to know, Emmanuel. That's great to know. And Mary says very confident. That's great. And then Jedediah says 9 out of 10. Need to put in the work. Yes, I agree. Very confident. Thank you guys for your responses. Really appreciate that. Emmanuel, can you share one thing that you think you can improve because of today's session? One thing you can improve in your CV. And then
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. So one is the presentations. I think I've done quite a number of presentations, even a webinar for teachers, where over 500 teachers joined the Zoom meeting, and I presented on becoming an emotionally intelligent teacher.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So I think,
Yeah, you want to highlight
This
that.
young man.
yes.
You are so impressive.
Eh,
Gracie, is there anything you think you want to improve in your CV because of today's session? Or any other person can jump in and answer. Edith, is there anything you think you can improve or you would want to improve? Gideon, Matilda, Mabel, Joseph. Maybe one or two more comments and
Yeah.
then we move.
I think one thing that I wanted to say is I would be interested to see Mary's redone CV because yours was almost like half a page, but you said you have a lot more experiences.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting to after the session, just when you're done with the exams and everything, lock in some time and flesh it out. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yes,
in the next
yes,
mentoring,
yeah.
we are not going to do one-on-one feedback again like we did because that we gave you that opportunity, so it's passed. But in the next mentoring meeting, the mentors are going to look at your CVs and focus more on discussing how well your CV aligns with your career objectives. So today what we've done is about your structure and your content and how to have an awesome CV. So we hope that by the next meeting, which is in 2 weeks' time, you would have made time to improve your CV, send it through to your mentor so that they can have that discussion with you. And it would be about, you want to do this, but I think you should try to focus more on this area in your CV so that you can get to your career goal. So keep that in mind. So you have another opportunity, but it's not going to be about content. So this session is quite unique, and I hope you guys have learned a lot from it. Was anyone going to say something? Okay. Yes, please jump in.
Thank you.
Thanks,
So,
Edith.
currently looking at my notes, I'm a bit confused.
Okay.
There's a presentation session
Yeah.
and community engagement session.
Yeah.
So based on my notes, I think I had similar ideas on what to
Mm-hmm.
put there.
Mm-hmm.
So with the my role at PsychMed, all I do is provide psycho education, and I've done a lot of talks, and these talks are like more or less presentations. So now I'm confused where to put the presentations and for the health talks,
Mm-hmm.
whether it should be a community engagement or presentations. And
If you definitely did presentations, put them under presentations. Or you can look, you don't have to have all these sections that I've talked about in your CV. But I've shared everything that could possibly be there so that it would prompt you to think about all the things you are doing and help you think about how you can sell yourself. You can decide to rename your section and call it presentations / community impact. Does that help? So be
that,
creative.
that
Yes. Yeah. Presentation / community impact. In my CV, it's easy for me to delineate between them because I do a lot of academic presentations, right? So they can clearly go there. And then I do a lot of volunteering stuff. So I can put them under community impact. But if you feel like you're conflicted, you can merge them. Yeah. And as your CV grows, you see that there may be a clear difference and you separate them. But for now, you can merge it. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And one more thing.
Yeah.
So now, for a time now, I've been confused with the
You like using the
resume and
word
then
confused a lot. This is the third time I've heard it from you today.
well, I think I'm confused in a lot of ways. So yes,
Okay.
need to get
We
yes.
need
So
to get Emmanuel to pray for you, then we can start the other part.
yes, Elder, please help. So we're distinguishing between a resume and then a
Uh-huh.
CV. I
This is specific.
mostly use them as the same thing,
Yes.
but sometimes I think one is supposed to be a one-page thing.
Uh-huh.
And looking at my CV can never fit into one page. I've tried and tried and tried, and it
Uh-huh.
never fits into one page. So I don't know. Is there some sort of magic to work around there?
So, yeah, you are very right. So the resume is shorter and it's often like 1 page, maximum two. But it also highlights more your competencies and your skills, the resume. And so the resume will be more focusing on those impact statements that we talked about rather than the individual like responsibilities, if that makes sense. So that would mean that you can, for each of the roles, just focus on the impact. Like, I did this, and it caused this or it helped to achieve this. So if you do it like that, but check, look, ChatGPT and all these resources are here to help us do that, to work smarter. So you can check some of the key things on a resume there and it will help you cut down. You can do it. Okay?
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, but
Thank
I
you.
don't distinguish between the
Mostly
two, and I've
ChatGPT has
never
been
had to
lying to
do
me.
a
So
resume. What?
mostly chat has been lying to me. So sometimes when you don't
Maybe
know it,
refine your questions and ask it more precise questions. Because the more
Okay.
detailed and specific your question is, the better it is.
Yeah. So one
yeah.
tip there to support what
Yeah.
Dr. Butchway just said. When you write the questions, you can, at the end of the question, say, act as a prompt engineer and rephrase this in such a way that it is comprehensive and brings out the meaning that I want to bring out. And then
Yeah.
ChatGPT itself would rephrase that prompt. And then when you take a look at it, if you like it, you can take it and then give it back to ChatGPT as a request. And then, yeah, move on.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So final slide in here is that your CV, no matter what it is always telling a story. So the question is, what story is your CV telling at the moment? What story is your CV telling? It also tells a very powerful story about your values as a person. So for example, when someone takes a look at your CV, they can see how diligent you are. Are there a lot of typos in your CV? Are you like detail oriented? Are you um like when you were given this role, how much impact did you do? Can your CV speak to the fact that this person took this very seriously? Even though this was volunteering, they really took it serious, and I can see it that they are diligent. It can talk about your integrity, for example, right? Depending on how you shape your what you talk about. It can talk about your intellectual humility. So there's a healthy balance between being humble and assertive. You want to definitely be assertive on your CV, but there's also a way that you put things that let people see that, wow, this person is eager to learn. This person is hungry for learning. This person collaborates. This person has been looking for opportunity. It shows intellectual humility and conscientiousness. So things about how your CV is structured, the formats, the fonts, how things are looking nice, that people want to work with organized people. So you want to definitely come across as one of the people they want to work with in terms of that initiative. So again, when you talk about the impact you had, people can really tell, wow, this person takes initiative. They did this here and they did that there. Wow, I want them on my team. Stewardship, so how responsive and supportive you are. Sometimes in a series, like we saw that in a lot of the CVs that we looked at today, that people are doing like JDDS initiative. It's really showing supportiveness, responsibility. We saw it in Emmanuel's CV. We saw it in Gideon's CV and Edith's CV. So try to think of what your CV is telling about you as a person. Are your values shining through that? If supporting people is important to you, are you doing some volunteering to show that this is important to you? So think of that too. So that's the end.